A very good morning to you on this 10th day of June. It's a Tuesday morning, a bit chilly, but it sure wakes us up and I trust puts us in a good frame of mind to take the day by the throat rather than the day of having to take us by the throat. If you've joined us, you've joined the Fifth Connection, and we are live as we talk through the storyline of this book that was written to Christian believers, followers of the way, who were engaging in life and living, and whom Paul had to make mindful, full-minded, mindful of the fact that they need to imbibe the mind of Christ, the disposition of Christ, the attitude of Christ, all synonymous terms, to be their disposition and to be their attitude. And so we have been looking since chapter 2 at this topic of what mindfulness looks like. It is about dying to think and experiencing death to our ego attachments. Christ left heaven's glory to live as a man and die on a cross and to rise again. And that becomes the pattern, the archetype, the archetypical pattern for believers. That in order to transform, you will need to experience death and dying. If it is not to be physical, then it will be real in every other way. Can I repeat that? If it's not physical death, then it is real in every other way. As I sever via the cross, sever those ego attachments, the way I attach myself to stuff, to being somewhere, to being someone else, to finding significance in people and places, accept the significance we have because of our continuity of contact with the risen Lord. And so we dive right into chapter 3, where we are looking at verse number 10 and verse 11. And let's see how far we can get this morning. We aren't here to rush through these texts because the flow of the story is so important. And if you don't catch the flow, you're not going to catch the drift of what the 3 big warnings in the chapter is about. First warning has to do with countering ego attachments. My job can be an egoic attachment that I have because it gives me significance. I am seen because of my job, because of my position, because of my connections, because of my bank balance. Second warning is leveled at countering utopian visions. You think you can usher in a utopia, an absolutely perfect environment in which people can live, then you would have made it. Well, there's a great warning here. Don't even try doing that because that's not what it's about. The third warning in verse 18 to 21 of the same chapter has to do with countering lager mentalities. When we bunker down in our thinking because it's safe to think in a particular way or concerning a certain thing. The word as a way of becoming a bunker buster. Incidentally, bunker busters were bombs that were created during the Second World War to blow up those deep underground fortresses. And of course, around the world, you still have them. You have mountains that house huge artillery. It's not only in the US, but around the world. People think they are safe when they bunker down in logger mentality. So the whole chapter is really about how to posture your thinking dispositionally, to posture in such a way that you are open to learn and you don't get stuck in a rut. Because the difference between a groove and a rut is its depth. And we get stuck in ruts and we can't get out of it because our thinking has captivated us ideologically. The writer is firing his artillery at fatal ideology. Ideology that doesn't just exist outside of the believing community, but right inside of the assembly. We have isms that capture our minds, that make us very pomp and pious. It gives us a aura of certainty. That's where we love to live because it's safe. We don't love and like to live with risk. I think as you walk with the Lord, He starts to develop in your soul a higher and higher and greater index for living with uncertainty. When your health starts going, your head starts to buzz, your blood pressure rises, and the joints don't work that well anymore. Wow, those are all part of the uncertainties that crash in. Well, let's look at the text and see how the text now fortifies our hearts and our minds in the right direction. Verse 8 has just accounted for the fact where Paul says, I count everything as loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ. That's knowing Him experientially, knowing Him in the flux and the flow of reality, when things go good and when they don't go so good. To know the surpassing worth of experiencing Him as my life. For His sake, I have suffered the loss of all things and count them as rubbish, a pile of junk, in order that I may gain Christ, because that's the goal. It's identity transformation, embodying ID transformation, because that's what life is about for the follower of the way, is to constantly transform into the image of the one who's called him out of darkness into light. Now, verse 9, Paul says, I want to be found in Him and be found in Him, not having a right standing or posture of my own that comes from the law, but that which comes through faith in Christ, the righteousness from God that depends on faith. Now that line is already a mouthful, but let's unpack it slowly. Because our biggest problem in our life is our narcissism. We are narcissistic to the hilt. It's about the universal tea party. Me, myself, and I. And I build my world around me, myself, and I. But Paul says, my goal is to be found in Him. Who's the antecedent of Him? Well, go back to verse 8. It's Christ. Gaining Christ and be found in Him. To be found in Him has to do with experiencing unitive awareness. Now, that's a big word. Unitive awareness, as in unity of being aware of who I deeply am because of my identity with and in Him. Who's Him? Christ. Unitive awareness is to experience Him as my life. John 15 says, I am the vine, you are the branches. If any man abide in me and my word abides in him, he will experience what it means to really live. Because we are dependent extensions of the vine. We are dependent extensions of Christ. Think of tendrils, the tendrils of a vine that constantly go out and wind themselves around the vine stock, or the sticks that are used to prop up the vine. I am a dependent extension. So think of a tendril, maybe a creepy idea. But as believers, we are grounded in the source of all being, who is God. And we are the tendrils of consciousness that flow from Him, who is our life. You have to think about that and contemplate that and get your head around it. So we are to experience unitive awareness. And that awareness, men and women, is not driven by narcissism, but it is driven by being made right in a moment by moment kind of way, experiencing what it means to become different. When you hit the crisis doesn't go away because of your name or your surname. Crisis maybe becomes more intense when you rock up, or by the time you rock up. But the wonderful thing is that you can become a different person and respond to that crisis very differently. We are made right through our continuity of contact with the one. Who's the one? Christ. Our continuity of contact, it's constant, it's moment by moment contact with the one who is the embodiment of identity transformation. He stands as the perfect example, the ensemble, the archetype of identity transform. How did he do that? He left heaven's glory. He let go of his essential nature. He let go of it. And he humbles himself, takes upon the form of a human being, lives as a man, dies as a criminal, not because of his own sin, but because of the sin of you and you and you and me. And so there's the mouthful. We are to experience unitive awareness that is not driven by narcissistic endeavors, but because we are being made right. We are drawn towards Him because of our continuity of contact with Him. We want to spend time with Him and become like Him in His death and His resurrection. And that's what the next verse is going to focus on. But there's so much right here in verse 9 to get out of before we go into verse 10. But all that to say, it is about our oneness with Christ. It's called union with Christ. Unitive awareness. Like the branches of a vine are related to the vine stock. And they have tendrils that constantly go out to navigate where they can hook in and hook on to experience the life-giving sustenance of the vine stock. Now verse 10. Paul's driving ambition. Paul's target. The thing for which he aims. He says, that I may know Him. We've recounted the fact that there are about 10 thought words in this section. In the next chapter, which is chapter 4, there are 15 thought words. So don't you think that the repetitive thought words are there to catch our attention, that it's all about how you think about life and living. It's not about going into neutral and going with the flow. It's about being engaged in gear, whether it's gear number 6 or number 2 or number 4. to be fully engaged, that I may know him, the writer says. Experientially, again, there's that word, epignosko, epignosis, experiential knowledge. It's dispositional knowledge. It's knowing him through the processes and perspectives and participation in life and living. That's what's really real. And Paul says that I may know him and the power of his resurrection and share in his sufferings, becoming like him in his death. This is not something he's waiting for to happen to him in the future when he drops into the grave. It's an ongoing experiential encounter with the one who has died and is alive again. Dispositional knowing has power to it because of this dying and rising idea. It's what chapter 2, verse 1 to 11 talks about. The humbled, self-exalted. It's something that you cannot get away from, and yet we try to run as far away as we can from death and dying. Many deaths have place in men before they come to die. Keep that in the back of your mind. You will experience death-like encounters across your life, the deeper and the closer you walk with God. And so, what is there again in your life that you need to let go of? What ego attachment are you riveting yourself to more and more deeply every single day because it gives you security, it gives you stability, but it's all false security and false stability. As I ego detach, I learn to use those attachments as bridges to live in contact with reality. My family, my wife, my husband, my kids, my job. They are bridges into reality versus ego attachments. Paul says, I count them as rubbish because my goal is Christ, to become like him in his death and in his resurrection. It's about the humbled, self-exalted, and we spent a lot of time with that in chapter 2. As you go with God today, become deeply aware of what your ego is trying to tie itself down to. And learn moment by moment to experience what death and dying looks like and feels like. What sitting in the midst of your pain is all about. That's what we're talking about here. It's not fleeting dreams of suffering. It is real. The bites of the nails are felt very deeply and go deep into our souls. As you go with God today, I trust that you will enjoy the Lord, enjoy him. He's the architect of life and how it works. Enjoy him and focus on him. I trust that you would have a good day. Goodbye for now.